And welcome back. This is the Builder Overview section. Here I'm going to explain a few things of definitions, locations, where we can find the properties window, where we can find our modules, how we can make backups, and how we can restore those backups. A lot of detail here. Just pay attention to where I'm pointing, follow along if you'd like. And at the end, what we're going to do is have you create your own backups, browse and import a couple devices as well. The first thing you'll see is our different windows. We have 4 different windows. Starting at the top left, we have our panels. These are the panels that you have created from the wizard. If you don't go through the wizard, you can click on the green plus sign and add your own panels. But you can see we have our Watch Movie, Apple TV, automation panels. These are the activities that we have selected. By default, our main panel, if we open that up, we can double click on it. We see that we have entrances, motions, and gestures. These are not requirements. These are extras that you can add to a project. We have portrait pages and landscape pages. We do portrait pages for phones, landscape pages for tablets. We click on the plus sign to open up those pages. We can see our home page, and we can click on that home page, and inside our center window, what we call our main window, you can actually see the interface that we're going to design and create. Underneath our panels window, we have our properties window. And inside the properties window, this is where we do all of our editing. So whether you're editing the text of a label, whether you're editing the title of a panel, whether you're editing the color of your text, this is where we do all of that editing. So we can edit the rows and columns, we can assign our entrances, we can enable motions, we can enable gestures. Now another note is this cog icon. This icon is where we can assign a variable value. Now with variables, this is how we can change backgrounds, change the text on the label. We can change the command that is being sent. We can do a lot of different things with variables, and any place that you see one of these little cog icons, we can assign a variable. Again, this is our main window where we actually edit the interface that we're creating. Beneath our main window, we will see a thumbnail of the different pages within this panel. And on the right, we have our actions area, our more area. You'll see 4 tabs. We have our images, we have our devices, feedbacks, and more. Under images, these are the images that are imported based on the theme that you selected. Now, if you didn't go through the wizard, you can browse and import images and import the size of the graphics you'd like. You can upload your own graphics. Using this upside down triangle, we can actually see the option to browse image libraries, and it takes us right back to our search engine, but this time we're just searching for graphics. Close this out, we'll come back to that in a moment. But you can see that we have our activities. So we have some images for the different activities within our project. We have some common buttons. And we have some miscellaneous random type buttons that we can use as well. Underneath devices, these are the devices that you imported from the wizard, but again, you can create your own devices. You can browse and import additional devices as well. Using the same icon, we can browse and we can also upload our own devices. If you have a custom device that you would like to use, whether it's in an XML file or a text file, you can browse your computer and search for those files. Using the pop-up, I'm going to choose a file for my computer. I have a devices section here, and I can look at my Arcam Zone 2 XML. I'm going to open that file, and I'm going to choose to upload it. And here's my new custom device. So if you're doing any kind of text editing, we have a couple example XMLs where you can build your own commands. You can actually upload your own devices. Now with those devices, we can hit the plus sign. We can see our different code types. You see that we have the GC codes. We have the Pronto hex codes. These are for learned commands if you're having to use the learner to build your own custom remotes. We have the network commands for RS-232 and IP controlled devices. And in this case, for our Integra 232, we see the plus sign next to the network codes. We can open this up and see the different commands we have available for our Integra receiver. Now if I click on the title of one of these commands, I can refer to that properties window and I can see the name of the command. I can also see the data for the command, so I can actually see the script that is being sent. If you have to edit your own script, you can go to that data field, you can type in your script, you can hit tab or return to save that information. So that's how you can create your own devices while within the builder itself. I'm going to use this collapse all function to minimize all my different devices. Move along to my Blu-ray, we see our database codes. These are for the IR controlled devices. So we see the different commands for our Blu-ray player. And again, if I click on the title, I can refer to the properties window. I can change that name. I cannot see the data field for a database command. We have a different provider who manages our database codes, and we cannot release those database codes to our end users. It's the only thing that we do restrict you from within the builder. You can see the different network codes. If you're doing anything with Pronto hex codes, you'll see the data field there. But the database codes we cannot provide to you. We also have that repetition count that you see. By default, 3 is the repetition count. If you ever have a device that you're sending one cursor command and it changes 3 times or 2 times, just go into that command and adjust the repetition number. With our feedbacks tab, again, we can do the same thing. We can browse and import for feedbacks. We can upload our own custom feedbacks. We can also create our own feedbacks using this green plus sign. And then providing the starts with and ends with field. If it's tokenized, we can create our own tokenized feedback. And then inside, we can create numeric and textual feedbacks by right-clicking and adding a textual or adding a code, depending on what we're creating. We can also browse. So I'm going to import some feedbacks for our Integra receiver. I'm going to search the vendor. And I'm going to find my RS-232 for my Integra receiver. Put a checkbox and import. And now we have the feedbacks within our feedbacks tab. Under our more tab, we have our different modules, our actions, conditionals. We can open these up and see what our options are. So we have our 4 music modules that we saw from within the wizard. We have our weather and clock. We also have the video player. With the automation, we have HAI. We have the Leviton Z-Wave, the Radio RA2, the Smart Bridge Pro, Homeworks QS, and others. If I open up the RA2, you can see that we have switches, keypads, horizontal and vertical dimmers, as well as thermostats, shades, blinds, and drapes. Just because we have shades, blinds, and drapes for RA2 does not mean it's there for everything else. Smart Bridge Pro also has it, but HAI does not. So if you're looking for shades, the different shades we provide are the RA2, Smart Bridge Pro, the Hunter Douglas ESI, as well as the Homeworks QS. Under security, we have the HAI alarm keypad, as well as the FOSCAM cameras. Under actions, these are delays, these are messages, the media player controls, but we also have set variables and input variables. So when you're creating a button to set a variable, you will find that under the actions of the more tab. If you're doing anything with wake on LAN, and we also provide link as action, so you can actually determine when you want a link to occur to a new page. Maybe you have a longer macro, you want the link to occur after the macro has been set, you can have the link occur last on your list. If you're opening up a third-party app, let's say Sonos for example, you need to change the macro on your receiver, so you turn on the receiver, you switch inputs, then you jump to the Sonos, you can use the launch as action, so that way the app launch occurs after your macro has been set. With conditionals, this is if-then logic programming, so you can see that we have if statements, else if, and or. With our widgets, these are buttons and links. A button is a single command, whereas a link will actually navigate you to a different area within your project. We have labels. You can customize labels. You can put them anywhere within your project. We have a URL window, and with this URL window, you can view any URL content right within this application. We also have a widget called drawers, and drawers are for those commands that you use throughout the project. So if you got volume commands, input commands, and you want to use them on multiple pages and panels, but you don't want to create the buttons additionally for every single page, use a drawer and it references a different area within the project and puts those buttons in place for you. We have the ability to launch. We've already mentioned the application launch. This is for a button within a page. So you're going to create a button, it's going to launch that app. It's not the same as the action. The action will actually be allowed to perform within a macro, whereas the launch is separate. The separate launch is just a single button for apps, for mail support, and for the browser. You can launch the browser native to the handset, and you can identify what web page you want to go to. With navigation, this is how you get to the settings of the OnControls application. You can use a back button to navigate back and forth between your pages. You can also go directly to your sync page, go directly to your panels page. This allows you to hide the navigation bar, which we'll show you here in just a moment, to create a nice clean interface, but still allow you to get into the settings. If you have to sync again, if you have an IP address that changes, you need to get to your gateways, you can make that change as well. Moving over to the top left, we have File. Under File, we have New Handset, New Activity. This takes us back into the wizard. So if I go File, New Handset, you'll notice that our setup has been modified, so we want to save those changes. And this takes us back into the wizard. Same 8-step process as before, but now we can select our Android handset, and we can select the resolution of our Android device. There's currently 19 different resolutions that we support for Android. If you don't see your handset listed, find out what the proper resolution is. Just go to Google, type in your handset, and then follow it up with specs. This will give you the breakdown of the handset so you can choose the proper device from our wizard. Go ahead and create a 2013 Nexus 7. Now you can hit finish, and when you click finish from the wizard, it creates the handset. It gives you the template layout for the different dimensions, and then you can create your own panels, your own pages. You can really build a customized look. You don't have to go through the rest of the steps of the wizard if you're building your own custom layout. You can also go next, and we can select our theme just like we did before. But you'll notice that with the wizard, we remember what you did your past trip through the wizard. We remember the activities, we remember the handsets, we remember the resolutions. So if you're adding second handsets with the same controls as the first, you can fire through these steps in no time at all. If you find that the wizard is not needed, you can cancel out of the wizard and go back into the project that you were working on. Under File, New Activity, it's the same wizard, but it skips the first two steps. So now we're adding an activity to an existing handset, so we don't actually ask you those first two questions. Now we just go right to our theme and go straight to the activities. Now because the wizard remembers everything we did before, you will get duplicates. So if you don't want to add a second watch movie, just deselect it. If you don't want to add a second Apple TV, we'll deselect that as well. Scroll down through my list, a couple of things I want to add. We'll add the iTunes, and we'll add a blank page. Now there's no devices to assign here, so it's going to tell me that there's no devices to assign, so go ahead and hit next. Once again, there's nothing to assign for our input and audio, so we'll select next, and we'll just continue to hit next until we finish the wizard. Once you finish the wizard, your new activities will be added to the panel tree underneath your lowest panel. So in our list here, we see panel 7 at the bottom. Underneath panel 7, you will get your new activities for the iTunes and blank pages. Now panel 7 right now has nothing on it for me, so I'm going to right click on it and actually delete and remove this panel so we can get rid of those unwanted elements. Also under File, you see Save. We do not have an auto save within the builder, so we do recommend saving every 5, 10, 15 minutes. You can do so by File Save. You can click on the floppy disk, or you can do Control S for your keyboard shortcut. Now we also have Backup and Restore, and what a backup is, it's a save locally to your computer of all the information you've created within this project. So let's say you have a big project and you spent quite a bit of time on it, and you want to make sure that it's in working order. You've tested it, it works great, setup's great. Make a backup of it. If you ever come in, you make changes, something doesn't work, you always have a file on your computer that you can restore and go back to. So simply go File Backup, and it's going to save files. And you will notice at the bottom of your screen that you get a .irl file created that saves to the Downloads folder of your computer, of your Mac, whatever you're programming on. Now you can restore this project by using the same process, going File and Restore. We have Restore from a system backup, which is restoring from the server. We do make system backups the first time you log into Builder on a new day. So if I were to log in tomorrow, I would get a new local backup that is created. Otherwise, I can restore the file from my computer. I can choose that file, go to my Downloads folder, and we see that we have a few different backups here. I can choose the backup I just created, and I can click on Next. When we restore a backup, you can choose the handsets that you want to restore. So if you've got a multi-handset project, you can choose the handsets that you want to add. So if you only want to add an iPad, you only want to add an iPhone, maybe an Android device, you can actually merge that with your setup. We can actually click on Merge, and we'll add this as a duplicate handset to the project. Under Browse, kind of already looked at this a little bit from the other window on the right side. We can browse for panels, image libraries. I'm going to do some image libraries here, and I'm going to search for backgrounds. Now there's 3 places that I can search for backgrounds. I can search the On Controls tab, which is our database. I can search the community, which is the open source community that everyone has access to, or we can search for that dealer tab. Now that dealer tab is access to you and your customers. So it's a private tab that allows you to share information across projects. You don't have to worry about going to an open source community that everyone will have access to. So now we can see some different backgrounds. We can see the description. So I'm building an iPad here. So I've got some abstract backgrounds for an iPad. I can look at the view, and I can see some different abstract backgrounds for an iPad. Once you find one you like, let's put a check mark next to it, and we'll import. Now again, you can just change your tab, search the community, find some backgrounds that people within the community have created, or if you've got a project that you're using, you've got an image library that you've created, you can share it to the dealer tab and import it with your new customer. Browse devices works the same way. We have the same 3 tabs. Therefore, if you're looking for an obscure device, maybe it doesn't exist within our database, before you spend all your time creating this device, whether it's learning all the IR codes, writing all the 232 script, search the community. There's quite a few devices in here that have been added from other users that work very well. They just haven't been added to our database. One example of this is Sky. If I search for Sky, this is a cable box that gets used a lot globally, and we have different commands in place for different portions of the world. You'll notice when you search the community, you'll get reviews, you'll get different options for different devices that are out there. It's a good place to start before you spend the time working on creating your own custom devices. Once the search finishes, you'll see that we have Sky for New Zealand, we have Brazil, and we have the UK. Now again, on the right, every once in a while you will notice some review sections where people have input their own reviews on this device and how well it has worked. You can import these devices the same way you would import devices from our database. We've already talked about feedbacks, but we can browse feedbacks and see the same three tabs. Under options, we have handsets and settings. If I look at my handsets, this is what we call our handset manager. We can see the name of the handset. If you're creating multiple iPad layouts for one home, maybe one for Mr., one for Mrs., go ahead and add a name to that handset. This way, when they sync the account, there's only one username and password that they enter into the application. But if they have two different iPads to choose from, identify who the iPad belongs to. So we'll say Scott's iPad and hit return. Now we see our screen width and screen height. If you're creating your own custom backgrounds using Photoshop, using GIMP, or just importing them off of Google Images, here's the image size that you want to look for. We also have the ability to hide the navigation bar. If we do this, it gives it a nice clean interface. It removes the panels and back button from the top of the screen. It's a really clean look, really good look, but right now we're going to get a warning that says we have no navigation elements. We have no way to get into the settings. We have no way to sync. If you can't get to the sync tab, any update you make from the cloud will not be able to be added to the handset. So make sure that when you're hiding the navigation bar, you're still providing a way that they can get to the sync page. Close out this warning here. And you will notice now that our usable areas have changed. Under options and settings, you will see that we can change the nickname on the project. We can change our default delay value. This is the default delays for your macros. Do you want 0.2 seconds? That's industry standard. I always prefer a half second, so I always come in here, change it to half second, hit tab to make sure that information's changed. We can change the background color. This background color is for the builder. You're not changing it within the app. You're just changing it, the background of the builder on the computer you're working on. Now we can also do full resolution grids for new pages, and a full resolution grid is different from the grid that we provide. We provide a grid that's 30 rows by 30 columns, for example. Full resolution grid gives you that exact pixel by pixel breakdown that you're using on your handset. So if you want to drag and drop images, you want to create your own custom graphics, you can drop them on the exact pixel that you yourself would want. Instead of using our grid, which is roughly 10 pixels by 10 pixels, you can do it one by one. A couple of things we'd like for you to do after this overview is finished is we would like for you to create a backup of your project. So this backup is going to be created just from the selection you made from the wizard. Also, browse and import a couple devices. Just get a look and feel for how we actually use the browse, how you can find different devices. Maybe it's an obscure device that you might have in your setup. Take a look through the community as well.